Oliver Pichuan Luthier here, and today we're going to put the first coat of finish on this tenor ukulele. And in a previous video I pointed out how to mask off where the bridge goes, and also I masked off the fretboard, and I have the sound hole plugged with a piece of towel, paper towel, so that we don't get finish in there. The reason for doing this is that we don't want to have any finish where the bridge goes, because the glue, the hot hide glue, will not stick to the finished surface. It has to be a raw wood surface. So we're going to keep this area raw wood. So at this point, we're going to put on the first coat of oil, and it's a tung oil blend. It's kind of my special recipe here. And I have a couple paper towels ready so that I can hold them with that, and we'll just see how this comes to life. This is koa, this wood, and it's
this is always an exciting part, revealing the beauty of the wood.
And so the first coat that goes on with this oil is a relatively light coat, and I usually do one side first, like this.
Oh my goodness, that's so pretty.
And then I have 800 grit wet dry sandpaper, and I go over it with this 800 grit sandpaper. And this has several functions. One of the functions is that it creates a very fine little sanding, not really dust because it's wet, but that fine, I guess you want to call it wet dust from the sanding, helps to fill the pores. I just put enough of the oil on to just be able to sand this and get it wet on this first coat. And on this first coat, we just want, this is basically just to seal the surface of it, and also to really get it nice and smooth with this 800 grit paper. And so once we have that on, we're going to buff the excess of that off right away. We're not going to wait for it to tack up or do anything like that. At this point, we just want to buff that off. And that is how this koa comes out. Boy, it has beautiful flame in it, this koa. And then we just do the other side. And then I do the two sides, and then the back and the front, then the neck, and then the headstock. That's the order that I do this in.
Speaking of the headstock, some people have asked, what is the significance of your logo, the symbol?
Okay, the logo, there you see is a little pine tree. And my last name, Pichuan, is Catalan, and it comes from the root of it is meaning John of the Pines. So it's a little pine tree. It relates back to my last name. So it isn't just a pretty design that I like, but it actually relates to my family heritage.
Catalan.
Which is Catalan.
Northern Spain.
Northern Spain, Barcelona to be exact.
So I know that you've used that logo for a long time.
Yeah, I actually registered it as a registered brand when I was in my teen years in New Mexico, in northern New Mexico. So I've had that, and I've used it as a trademark when I was making furniture and making small things for now well over 50 years. Boy, this color is really nice. I'm excited to see what the back is going to look like.
Me too. All right.
So this first coat, you can see how that's the stuff from the sanding. But so it rubs it into the pores and also just takes off all the excess. So there's not much shine on this first coat. It's not designed for that. This is for just basically getting the wood pores
And
sealed.
giving it a drink. Oh,
Yeah.
look at that.
Yeah, this has got some pretty nice flame in it. This koa and the maple and the purfling and the ebony headstock really stand out. Yeah, this is going to be very special, this guy. It's important to wear gloves when you're working with this oil, and also not a bad idea to have the window open. So,
Nice
Just
that we
one.
have windows.
yeah, it's nice to have windows. The shop I had before this didn't have windows that could be opened. And this is really a big plus, having windows that can be opened. Boy, this is really spectacular. This wood. I think that the front is going to be really pretty too. So this first coat, this is 800 grit wet or dry sand paper that I'm using on this. And the next coat will be with 1000 grit wet or dry paper. And the third coat is going to be with 2000 grit. And then the fourth and fifth coats are not sanded, wet. And so, and it'll build up a nice satin shine with those subsequent coats. And I'm just making sure that we don't get any drips or anything that are going to create problems later. We don't want any tacky little drip spots. These little areas here will go away when we do that. So now we're going to do the top. Boy, that abalone really shines.
Abalone.
Yeah, the abalone and the rosette.
Yeah.
So the fretboard takes a different kind of finish. It's basically, a lot of people believe that you shouldn't put any finish on ebony or rosewood fretboards. I think some people use lemon oil and other people use different products on them for cleaning and for preserving them. I use a special fretboard oil that I get from Stumac for that. But boy, that is really something.
Why do some people not?
Well, because there are a lot of, I guess the thought is that when you play an instrument, there are a lot of oils on your hands naturally that'll come off. Now,
However, it seems like the oil will protect the wood.
Yeah.
The what you put on it.
although ebony is pretty amazing wood, you know, it's there's furniture that was made by the Egyptians that's still very strong and in good shape after thousands of years. I don't know if it had any finish on it at all. I didn't know that. I remember seeing that at that King Tut exhibit.
I wouldn't be surprised if they used some kind of form of beeswax or something.
Yeah, they were pretty advanced. So you can see this doesn't take too long to get this all sanded. You want to just make sure you just go over it enough to make sure you're also, the oil has a tendency to raise the grain slightly, and this will take care of that right away. that little, the combination of the maple and the ebony on the bindings is, I think, really nice. I think we'll see how that sepal mahogany looks on the neck here in a minute. This is like Christmas, opening up the grain. It's almost like the instrument boy, this is really something. This is a special order, this particular ukulele. It's going to go to Southern California.
I'll be very surprised and happy.
Yeah. Okay, so now we're going to do the neck. This is that sepal mahogany. Mahogany is beautiful wood. You can see how nice that little heel plate came out. The maple matches going all the way around.
Yeah, it's perfect.
The body, when I sand before the finishing, initially it's sanded with 120 grit, and then it's sanded with 220 grit, and then it's sanded with 320 grit, and then 400. So it's been sanded to 400 grit before this, and now this is 800. Try to always go with the grain if you can, although with this super fine sandpaper, it's okay to go against the grain a little bit with it because it really doesn't scratch anything. And it's already sanded so fine that you can see the scarf joint right there.
Wait a second, where is it?
Right there.
Oh.
Can you see it? Yeah, that's the scarf joint where the headstock is attached to the...
So tight it can't even disappear.
Yeah, on this side. I don't know if you can even see it. It's right there.
Mm-hmm.
You probably noticed that when I've sat the ukulele down on the workbench like this, I put it on top of the paper towel rather than on my bench mat. It's getting a little shine to it already, but not much. And I'm not so interested in shine at this point. Okay, so now it's time for the headstock. Goes pretty quickly. One thing you may have noticed here too is that you can see that the holes that I've drilled for the pegs of the tuning machine, I've chamfered the corners of it slightly there, and that's because on the tuning machine there's a little ridge where the peg goes into the plate, and that accommodates for that little ridge.
Is that chamfered? Is that little slanted?
Yeah,
edge?
that little slanted edge there. That's what that is. Yeah. Keep dropping that thing, that little piece of, I have a small little piece of cloth I use, and I use a lint-free, pretty lint-free cloth. It's just an old cotton t-shirt. That's what the rag is. You can see how this is coming out here. It's pretty nice.
Oh, there. Beautiful.
Yeah. So. Wet sanding. I've eased all the corners of the body and the headstock up here with a 320 grit sandpaper so they're not sharp corners. I like the idea of them being not completely rounded, but I want to have them so that
They're not sharp.
They're not sharp. They have a softness to them.
They're elegant.
Mm-hmm. That little maple in there is really nice on that headstock. A lot of time and care goes into making an ukulele. It's a very
A handmade one.
handmade one, that is.
Yeah.
You know, there's so many manufactured instruments out there now, and they've got it down so that they can make them pretty inexpensively, but they treat the wood, at least most of the manufacturers do, they treat it just as a material, and they don't take into account the individual little idiosyncrasies of the grain or things like that. It's not just a material. The wood was a living thing at one point. I use this little dowel on my sandpaper to be able to sand inside the slots there. The headstock. There's a lot goes into the headstock. Okay, I think that's pretty
Yeah, it's a lot less work if it's a solid.
Yeah, solid headstock is a lot less work. And the tuning machines are also a lot less expensive. It's amazing, tuning machines, like a good set of Rogers tuning machines can cost up to in the thousands of dollars just for the tuning machines. And these Rubners are German that I use, and they're
More affordable.
they're much more affordable. They're
still up there, but
they're still over $100 for a set of Rubners. And yet, you know, you can go to a music store and buy a whole ukulele for less than $100 if it's just a cheapo manufactured ukulele. But one like this is a really special. Boy, that ebony and that is really pretty. In there, it's really pretty. And this is New Zealand Paua abalone.
it's brilliant.
Yeah, it's beautiful. We have a friend who lives in Vietnam, and he and his family, he's an American, but he's married to a Vietnamese woman, and her whole family, they have a whole business of cutting abalone and selling abalone. And he's just a really sweet, wonderful guy. And I get him to cut my logos for me. Okay, so that's it. We've got it. I'm just going to go over it, buff it one more time. Notice that I'm wearing gloves. I've had to turn these fingers inside out on those, on that because of my hand. This is why we go over it again, is that we've got some drips and things here and there, so we don't want those to be a problem.
What were you saying? About your gloves.
Oh, yeah, I have to turn those fingers inside out so that they're just not little floppy things. It's really important for everyone when you're working with woodworking tools and things to be careful.
Big machinery.
With big machinery. I was making kitchen cabinets when this happened, and there was a flaw in the wood that I was working with that kicked it out, and my hand went into a molding cutter.
6 years ago.
Yeah, 6 years ago. And it was a life-changing traumatic event for me. So you don't do that. It's interesting because I have a friend who's a woodworker too, or was a woodworker in New Mexico years ago, and he always used to say the people who start out working with wood don't have any accidents. It's the people who have been doing it for a long time that get comfortable around the machinery, and they're the ones that end up thinking they can get away with taking risks and have problems. So he was missing a finger too. So I think this is pretty nice. I think we're pretty much there with this first coat. So the next 5-6 coats that go on this will be similar. So I don't see a need to film all of those.
Right.
So the next video will probably be working with the nut and the saddle, and setting up the strings, how to put strings on and do all of that. So now that this is all buffed off, I'm going to just set it over here. And there she is. Yeah, if you like this video, and let me know if you have any suggestions or ideas or questions. Please put those in the comments below, and subscribe to my channel. Share the video. Thank you.